it's not that I'm not trying. It's just that this show's success isn't a top priority for me. So I'm doing this show. I have my reasons for doing the show. I'm trying to grow alongside you, the audience, and I'm just here to address a couple of things because, well, I'm also trying to put it out there, right, to glorify God and put out my true intentions with this show, what the goals are for this podcast, and what I'm going to do moving forward, right? The show's success is not my priority. I really do not care if, a year from today, I've actually grown popular, it's made me some money, I have a little bit of internet fame, whatever. I don't really care, right? Or the other way around, if it stays exactly like this, I don't really care. I'm perfectly fine with either option. And it could be weird. You'd be like, well, why are you making content like this if you're just here going about the motions and it's not about actual success? Well, I have my reasons. And that's what I'm going to address in today's episode, in today's show. And I'm going to, first I'm going to go through some things that I am doing, some future plans for the show. And then I'm going to go through the reasons why the success of the show and the actual growth of the show isn't necessarily the thing I'm really looking at. So I'm doing some small things. I have some small efforts I'm putting in every day to making this show better every day. Of course, I make it look nice, right? I make a good thumbnail. I have a good thumbnail template. I make it look a little bit more professional. I try my best with title, SEO optimization, search engine optimization, which is to say, something that will engage people, something that will actually get it searched for in on the YouTube search engine. And I got a couple videos that got some good views just off of that, and a couple other reasons. But I have that. Obviously, I have this room, this actual setup. In the future, I would like to, you know, move, right? Go to a different room, have a different background. Because, okay, yes, the green wall is a little bit ugly, I admit. So it's, and the lighting's not very good. I'd like to get better lighting, better microphone, set up all that stuff, make it more professional. I'd like to get some people on, make it more podcast-like rather than it just being me talking to a camera, make it more podcast-like, and just continue to grow the show and grow myself. And, those are some things I'd like to get going in the future, especially like the near future. Make some of these changes, get some of these things moving. And of course, I post shorts. For the most part. I try and go through episodes, go through my footage and get some decent clips. But of course, I do it all on my own, so I don't do it every day because I got other things going on, right? I have a life too. So it's not like the biggest thing, but whenever I can, I'll get a short out, I'll edit a clip and I'll get it out. And, varying levels of success on that. But I think if there's going to be growth, it's going to be from consistent shorts posting and getting people engaged that way, getting them to watch the longer episodes. I know how that works. And of course, the daily uploads, right? Obviously, that's a given, right? It's a podcast episode every single day for 365 days. We are 22 days in. This is the 22nd day. And so, YouTube likes it. They like it when you post daily, when you're consistent with your upload schedule. So, these are a couple of things that I am already doing and I'm already thinking about in terms of, actually what would potentially give this show good growth. On YouTube, on Spotify, we haven't really been growing as much. But on YouTube specifically, that's what I'm going to, hone in on and focus on, is the metrics that will help YouTube videos grow. Because also I know a lot more about it. And it's been varying levels of success, but I'm doing things, I'm trying to improve, and improving the show is also a way I improve myself as well. So whenever whenever some of these new changes come into place, I continue with these things that I'm already doing, we're good, right? And it's gonna slowly grow, and how much it grows, again, I don't really care. But just to say that I'm doing some things, and I'm already doing some things, thinking about growth in some way. So it's not like I'm just sitting on the side and doing absolutely nothing. I'm doing a couple of things, maybe not as much as I should be doing if I was really dedicated to it growing, but I'm doing a couple of things that might work out. So here's why I don't really care. I don't really care about growth. I don't really care about views, likes, comments, whatever. I don't care about those metrics because from the start, the show had different goals from the start. It's not just I've decided this now after I've received a couple of hate comments. No, no. This is something that's been from the start, from the beginning of the show. And obviously, if you watch the beginning episodes, I encourage you to watch whatever episode intrigues you and sucks you in and looks like a good topic that you would enjoy. I encourage you to go to the channel, look at things, check it out, right? But goal number one is most importantly to glorify God, to increase my faith, to increase myself in my faith in God and in Jesus, and to glorify Him, to speak in a way on this show that glorifies Him and that is a good representation of His followers and His disciples, which I try to be every day. I'm not perfect. No one's perfect. That's also part of the whole gospel message, gospel promise, is to know that you're not perfect and nobody's perfect. But with Christ, we are made perfect in His image. So from the beginning, it's to glorify Him and be a good representation of Him. So it's to grow my faith. And of course, I know that, the faith in Him will make me stronger in my life and in everything else that I'm doing around me in my life and in myself and who I am. And, fulfillment in my life, living a great life, right? The faith and the increasing in faith is what will help me do better. And this show is a great chance for me to maybe change some other people's hearts. Obviously that hasn't happened, but we'll get into that. But change some other people's hearts, and of course, grow myself in stature as well when it comes to faith. And that's not something that views or anything like that matters. It's what matters is what's inside my heart, and how I feel the content is. How I watch the videos back and I feel, okay, did I do well explaining this topic? Did I do well glorifying God in this instance? If yes, that's good. If not, it's a mistake. You check it down, and I grow and I learn from it. So it's a good way to do that. And of course, to prove to myself that I can stay consistent with something for a year, because obviously, I've been hustling, right? I've been trying to make some money. I've been trying to make it in this world. I've tried to make it as a football player, as we know, I imagine as most of you know. But if you don't, previous videos, I talk about it. And so I've been hustling, been grinding, and now that kind of everything's kind of come to a stop, I have to kind of get back into that mode, prove to myself that I can do something for a year straight without missing a single day, regardless of if I'm sick or if I'm on vacation or whatever. Regardless of that, don't miss a single day, and prove to myself that I can actually do it. And if I can, that's great. That'll help me moving forward to say that yes, I can be consistent in this, so I can be consistent in other things, and I will make it in this world. And of course, it's to improve my speech, the way I talk to the camera, the way I create content, and even in public speaking, and just my intellect in general, the way I can convey my ideas even to people. That doesn't even have to be in a public setting or an online setting. And actual success is completely secondary. These other goals are things that I really, really care about when it comes to this show. It actually has nothing to do with whether it's successful. Whether I'm successful or not is completely down to God's will. If God wants me to be successful, He'll make it happen. If it's not, if this isn't the time or this isn't the thing that will be successful, I rejoice in His name and in His gifts regardless. I don't really care, because the show mainly is to glorify His name, to spread the faith, and to be a good representation of Him, and to fulfill these personal goals that I've also set for myself. If I do all of these things and you get to the 365 days and I'm, in the same position, maybe with a few hundred more subscribers, but no insane growth, then that's fine. I'll be absolutely okay with that. So the success of the show really doesn't matter to me for those reasons, because I'm doing it for other reasons. Even if you don't understand it, it's okay. You don't have to understand me. That's better. In my opinion, it's better if you don't understand me, because that means I'm going in the right direction. So it doesn't really matter. If this show's successful, it'd be great, right? But also, I'm weary of online, right? I've already seen a little bit of online hate, right? I'm weary, and I'm very, conscious of the fact that you get a platform. If you get the platform and, I grow big, and a lot of people do actually resonate with the content I post, there's also a lot more drawbacks to it, of course, right? the price to pay for fame, right? Even if it's like internet micro niche fame, and I'm not gonna get to millions of subscribers. I'm fairly confident of that, but the micro niche fame that I might maybe get to will lead to a lot of negativity, a lot of hate, and a lot of things that especially in the way that we've seen the internet shape up to be like. It's not something I'm really looking forward to, right? So I'm not exactly pushing for that, right? So it's another reason why I'm just a little bit conscious of the fact that you know let me just do this, do my goals, and not overly try and overly compensate to try and make it big, because also I know the negative drawbacks of getting to that level, and getting to that level of internet fame, what it can do for me. And obviously, I know I'm aware of the fact that I've probably already said some things. It's only 22 episodes, but if I make it big, someone will go back and clip something of me saying something in the early episodes. But that's okay. I'm perfectly ready for it, right? Jesus calls his disciples and he says that you will be persecuted for my name. So I'm ready, man. I'm ready for whatever persecutions to come. But I'm not going to actively invite it and seek it, right? If that makes sense. Hopefully that does make sense. And of course, yes, I could be more provocative because I know it gets views. The couple of videos that I was over the top a little bit on a couple of topics, and admittedly in the thumbnails and titles as well, I can be provocative. I can make every single episode like that. I am aware completely that being angry, stirring people up, stirring the pot a little bit, stirring negativity. Okay, it's hate comments, but it's still comments, right? It's still engagement, interaction with the videos. I know that is a prime way to grow yourself in popularity. But I'm just not for that, man. I'm not for the hate. I'm not for the anger. I'm not for the, sometimes I can be angry, and sometimes I have a problem with my anger that I have to learn how to control. But I know that it's not worth it. It's not worth it for me. I'd rather just live my life, you know do what I need to do, become successful one day, and do it. If I'm going to be successful, I want to do it in a positive way that glorifies God, and keeps my reputation of being a good guy, a guy that's reasonable and positive, and open for conversation and debate. But I don't want to be the hateful, angry guy that just pisses people off. There's certain people that I'm okay pissing off because I don't really value their opinions. But I don't want to be like the guy known as the person that's just angry all the time, right, and pisses people off and all that. So I absolutely know that's prime way to get popular online. But I'm not going to go with that because it doesn't glorify God. It doesn't glorify His name. Again, Jesus talks about how anger is, if anger is just as bad as murder. He talks about it. He says that because the reason why he says that is because murder is usually coming from an angry place. It's just the extreme side of anger. But any anger especially towards any other person, towards your brother, towards your friend, towards your family, it's basically just a lighter form of something that can be so drastically bad. So that's what Jesus talks about. And I know I have to control my anger, but I know anger leads nowhere. But I know that I could, if I really wanted to make this show big, I could. But I don't, because I choose to. I choose not to, and I choose to, choose the path that glorifies God in a loving way. Because again, Jesus talks about love, not hate, joy, not anger, spreading the positivity, not negativity and hate. And that's where I am. That's my goal for this show. It's also to spread the right values, portray myself in the right way as well, and of course glorify God above anything else. So that means, as much as it is an option, as much as I've seen it, as much as I know, I'm not stupid. I am aware that is a good way to get popular. It's not something I'm really here for. I'm not, again, as I said before, I'm not going to actively try to seek persecution. As much as I will get persecution, I understand that I'll be persecuted for some things I say and for some things I believe, and I absolutely understand that. And bring it on, right? Bring it on, atheists. Bring it on, haters. Like I'm aware, right? I am aware, but it's the point that I'm trying to make, is that I'm not going to actively go out and seek it just to get popular, because as I said, the success of the show, being popular, being a big figure, is not the goal. It's not the overarching principle. If it happens, it's God's grace, God's will, and I'll try and build from there a respectable, good platform that is that something that glorifies God, and something that isn't filled with anger and hate, but rather truth and love. And I'm going to keep working towards that. If I do get it, great. But if I don't, again, I sit here in this chair, ideally in the future, a different chair with different setup and more professional setting. But I'll sit wherever I sit, talk, and be perfectly fine all the same, to go over big concepts of life, answer questions, kind of, dissect deep issues, mean a lot to me, probably mean a lot to you, because of course you're still watching this video, and you're still watching, you're watching the videos you've watched. And again, I appreciate all those that, especially I appreciate all those that are respectful and, watch this with respect in mind. Even if you do disagree with some things I say, I do appreciate all of you. I just don't appreciate the haters and the extremists, but I'm sure nobody does. And of course, I couldn't care less about rude people. I could not care less. Whenever I see just an over-the-top hate comment, and trust me, I've seen a few. Some of them are probably bots, but some of them are actually real people. It kind of sickens me a little bit, and it makes me a little bit sad, if anything, that you would put a huge paragraph talking about how much you hate me or whatever, or God is not real, or whatever the hell garbage tangent they're on. And what I do is I just delete their comment. It's not because I don't, it's not because I don't have a defense. It's not because I don't have a rebuttal. It's just that I don't want to give these guys any sort of the smallest little bit of attention. And it hurts for a second, but it only hurts for like a millisecond. And then I say, all right, man, that's what you think, delete the comment, mute all notifications, and move on with my life, right? Because their opinion really doesn't matter, because they're clearly so far off and kind of so distorted, their view of reality. And especially again, if you type such long paragraphs of hate just to hate, right, just to hate because you have nothing else to do with your life and your time, to hate online, to me, the attention, they don't deserve any attention. I hope that's not you being this far in the episode, but these guys don't deserve any attention. So I don't really pay attention to the rude people. I don't want negativity on this channel. If it's, I accept criticism though, and I leave the comments up if it's a respectful rebuttal or debate topic to a point, and it's respectful. I'll appreciate that, respond to it, and I already have, right? You can go through previous episodes, see some comments, especially the popular ones, right? You'll see that like some respectful disagreement, that's encouraged. I absolutely love that. I appreciate that. We bounce ideas off rather than hate each other. But the complete hate and arrogance that comes from other people online, that type of stuff, don't even bother. I don't even bother. And if you're thinking of writing a comment, don't even bother, because it's it's not gonna get you anywhere. I'm just gonna delete it and block you, and that's the idea, right? And I'm gonna keep doing that, right? It goes back to all the previous things. It's like, yeah, if I really wanted to get popular, I'd leave it all up regardless of hate, love, whatever. I'd leave it up, but I don't care about that. I care about glorifying God's name, and I care about making this a space and a place where we can all kind of exchange ideas together in a respectful way, and agree with each other, spread positive vibes, positive messages, and the love of Christ in a good, positive manner, and a respectful, dignified manner, rather than completely just demeaning my entire character or demeaning our entire characters, because there's arguments and debates in the comments as well. I'd rather be a positive space than a negative space. So because views aren't the priority and popularity is not the priority. So, I stress it a lot because I think it's important to say, right? And, have this episode out there, even if not a lot of people watch it, so that I can refer to it later as a way to say, hey, in the beginning of this show, I made it very clear. that success wasn't the ultimate goal. And if it happens, thanks be to God. But if it doesn't happen, thanks be to God. Because truly, to me, it really doesn't matter. So I thank you for making it this far. Again, check out, other episodes, if you want, because again, even if they don't get views. That's not what I'm focused on. I'm focused on creating good content for all of you and glorifying God's name. And I think I've created some decent content. I think I've gone over some pretty good ideas so far on this show. Ideally, things get even better in the future. I'm going to continue improving and growing in myself and bringing you, the audience, and the viewer alongside me along this journey. So I appreciate you've made it this far. Check out some other episodes. There are some good things there, some good tidbits, some good life lessons that you can take and help you move forward in your life. Whether you're a believer or not, you're invited. Just be respectful. That's it. Be normal. Be a normal person. Human dignity. Don't be parasocial. Don't be a narcissist. Don't be autistic. Just be a normal person. Disagreeing in a respectful way, criticizing in respectful ways, and we can all live in a good community, in a good space, and well, do better every day and improve in each and every one of our lives, because that's why you're here. That's why I'm here, and we're all together in the same boat. I hope I make that very clear. So that's why I don't really care. That's why I do not really care about success on this show. And regardless of what happens, I will be here for 365 days.